Hi there, this is Brent from PathandTarot. In this video, we're going to talk about the Path and Elemental deck and how to get the most out of it. And we'll talk a little bit about how it was created. You can see it's flashing here, the light's flashing on my face, which is actually an interesting phenomenon from the Orphalese tarot program. So this tarot program is helpful in utilizing like a digital deck to use here. So that's what we're going to be using as the program. You can get that as a free trial if you want, just to experience it. It's a great thing to work with digitized decks. Okay, so with that out of the way, it's not like a promotion or anything. It's just what we're doing here. So on screen here, we got the deck of the Path and Elements, Path and Elemental deck. This is what it's called. So all the cards are loaded up and they're shuffling right now. So we'll let it shuffle a little bit more. It's already shuffled, so you could pretty much use it at any moment. But the main thing that you would use this deck for is to train yourself for like improving your intuition and capturing moments of ESP, extrasensory perception, through card guessing. That's the main thing that this deck was originally designed for when I first created it. Not too long ago, actually. Now, with card guessing, normally if you read a little bit of the history books, you're guessing from a Zener card deck, which is 5 sets of 5 symbols. And that deck would usually have about 25 cards. So there's sets in there, 5 each. Now, this deck is sort of based on that. It's based on the Western elements. So you've got 5 symbols, meaning it fits the structure of the Zener cards. So it works well in that way. So you don't really need to worry about what symbol it is you're guessing. It could be anything. In this case, we're going to be guessing the Western elements. Now, this deck is different from the Zener card deck in a big way in that it contains the sub-elements. So if you've been watching the flashing, you're noticing that you're getting these backgrounds happening of a different color. Like green, we just saw red, yellow, blue. It's crazy. It's an interesting effect too. It's mesmerizing. But those are the sub-elements. The sub-elements are elements within elements, or elements within themselves as well. Now, they create an interesting scenario for card guessing in that whatever guess you've made, it can count for either of the elements on that card. So it improves your chances of guessing by a factor of 1, basically. So instead of your chances of guessing being 1 out of 5 every time, it's 2 out of 5. So it's 40% for your odds of guessing, when it would be about 20% if you were dealing with just 5 sets of 5 symbols. Now, this deck has 75 cards. So what you have is you've got 25 sub-elements, and then you've got 50 regular elements. So there's 5 sets of 10 elements for each of the 5 elements, which is air, water, fire, earth, and spirit. So you've got 10 of each. So you could do this, you could just use the 50 if you wanted to, or scale it down. You can scale it up and down. That's the beauty of having that many cards. But there's only one sub-element of each, so it's just the natural combinations of the sub-elements give you 25 of them. Now there's about 5 of the sub-elements that contain elements within themselves. They're the same element, so those are unique because they only count for 1. If you were to guess fire, and the element was fire within fire, which you'll see a green and red color if you saw that come up, that would just count for 1. So really, it's only 20 cards out of the 75 that count for possibly, 1 or the other guess, like improving your odds. So what we'll do a test of intuition here in this video, and I'll show you kind of how you would work with it a bit. But that's the odds that you're playing with, and the basic math behind this deck, how it applies to card guessing. And that's how you'd want to use it first off. Now, there's other ways to use the deck, which we'll go over here at the end of the video too, after we get through card guessing and do some intuition testing. But the benefit of using elements in this deck is that the elements connect to the tarot. The tarot has 5 different suits. So the which relate to the Western elements anyways. So this deck very nicely connects to the tarot. And if you've seen here already through the flashingness, it's getting kind of crazy right now as we're talking, but you'll see there's playing card symbols. Get a sense of it right now. So the playing card symbols also then have an elemental relation that further connects the tarot and playing cards. So this is one deck out of the 3 path series. So it's you can call it like a path suite if you wanted to, a collection of cards. So this is the elemental cards. There's the playing cards that I have. You'll see that in other videos. And then there's the tarot deck. So this is all meant to harmonize and work together. So ideally, if you had all 3 of these decks, you'd be able to use them all together. And they have ways of working in their for fortune telling and divination and other personal work like that. Now these cards also have the ability that you can work and do meditations with as well. So there's that that you can do with it, and then there's a basic spread that you can use for divination. So the elements are based on the Western elements. As we've talked about, a lot of it comes from the teachings of the Golden Dawn. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about that, you could very easily go grab any books relating to that, and you'll be able to learn more about it. And then if you wanted to learn about card guessing, its history, you're going into the subject of parapsychology in the early 20th century with J.B. Ryan and Carl Zener, who created the Zener card deck. And so you'd be looking in that direction. So these cards are a mixture of parapsychology elements, pun intended, and the Golden Dawn magic, dealing with scrying meditation of these symbols. A training magician would meditate on just one of the symbols in a particular way and dive into that and work with like vision quests in a way, like visualizations. And that's how you could come about with unique messages from within yourself using the elements as an aid. Each element has its own meaning set too. It has very specific meanings. We won't go too much into that because you can read about them if you want in the text below in the description. But let's get into a little bit of the intuition testing here, because I like that. It's a lot of fun. I've tested myself a lot, and I've tested other people on Instagram Live, and that was a lot of fun too. There's a lot of unique things that can come up. The first thing that comes up is when you get a right answer, you feel it strongly, like it's almost an immediate thing. So it's a strange thing to feel, but that's a very common thing when you're making a correct guess or when you're about to make a correct guess. So if you're watching this video here, you made it this far, and you're interested in intuition testing, what you want to be really focusing on is not how many hits you're getting, how many correct answers you're generating. It's the understanding of the feeling of that right answer. Because I can tell you, you can create as many different variations on the test and spice it up as much as you can. You're never really going to get past the expected levels of chance, which is about 20% correct answers in any session over time. And the more time you add into your data testing, in your test sessions, you're just going to really come up and down close to this 20% mark anyways. So that's the hard barrier. It's like you can think of it as the speed of light. That's what it is, at least as far as we know, right? But if we take that as something as a hard limit, we can focus on something a little bit different. And that's, again, the quality of the right answer. That's what I think is the best thing to focus on. So it's a matter of being able to capture and record somehow what you were feeling and how that right answer just came about. And so again, talking back to my experiences, right answers just, they kind of feel right. It's from your gut instinct. Sometimes you can see a visualization in your mind's eye. If you close your eyes, you can see things. That puts you towards a little bit more of clairvoyance as a phenomenon. If you wanted to, link it to a parapsychological phenomenon, you could say it's close to that. But otherwise, really, a lot of the right answers just come from it. It feels right. So let's see what we can do here. Now, the nice thing about this tarot program, Orphalese Tarot, is that it's able to very quickly shuffle up the deck. So test methods can interfere with your data collection when you're doing intuition tests. best way to do it is to have your deck. So if you actually own the deck, you're going to take your deck and you're going to shuffle up really good. And you're going to make your guess, draw the card off, and you're going to record if it's correct or not. Then you're going to take that card, put it back in the deck, shuffle it up again. So that's an open deck test. The deck is always being reset by shuffling it. You never want to draw off the card and take the card and leave it aside, right? Because you can subconsciously get a sensory leak because you're guessing, you're keeping track of the guesses in a way. You may not be doing that, but you could be subconsciously doing that. Now, it's a sensory leak, and you want to avoid sensory leaks. You can read more about sensory leaks in the article below too if you wanted to, but that's just a very common thing, and that's connected to the method. So the benefit of the Orphalese Tarot program is it's very quickly able to shuffle the deck well, and that's what we need here, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a guess, and then we're going to see what the card is, and we're going to put it back in, and we're going to shuffle it back up and keep going with that. So if you had the deck physically, you'd just be shuffling a lot, collecting your data. Now we're only going to do 5 guesses here, so just 5 of them. It's common to do about 25 or even more, but what I can tell you is that can cause a lot of fatigue. Like, it's mentally draining. So 5 is a good sweet spot, and it really helps illustrate the data. So, like, if you get 5 guesses, it's very easy to go, oh, I got 1 guess. Okay, so that's 20%. So it's easy to work with. So that's what we're going to do here. So now that we've covered a lot of what you would need to know to do the basics, and of course you can read more in the web guide for this. We'll get into the testing. So I've just got a pad of paper here that I'm going to keep track of, and away we go. So my guess is going to be the red triangle, fire. It's not, it's spirit. That's too bad I didn't get it right. That's okay. So we go gather cards. So if you do gather cards here like this, it gathers the card back up when you shuffle it. I'm going to take time to think about it. It's weird that the flashing, I don't know how I've made it through this and talking, with you on the camera of what this flashing is occurring, but it's actually, if you close your eyes, it's kind of an effect. I'm going to guess water. So the blue triangle, blue upside down triangle. It's not, it's red. So this is a sub-element, which is fire inside of air. So if I was to guess either of those two, that would be correct. But it's not. Fire in air. But this is a good example of seeing a sub-element come up in the test. Gather the cards here again. Okay. I'm going to guess earth. And that was not correct. That was air. I'm going to take my time with this. Just kind of search my mind a bit. Spirit. Ooh, it's not spirit. Spirit is a white circle. So this is, again, we got another sub-element. But this is actually one of the sub-elements we were talking about prior, which is kind of uncanny, but that's how things go. This is fire in fire. So it's just one element. So if I would have guessed fire, I would have been correct, but I would have been more correct than the other cases. Now we'll stop because we'll talk about the sub-element, because I think it's a little important. You're dealing with the flashing colors of each color. Each color, if you look at a color wheel, there's colors opposite to it. Those are what's known as a flashing color from the perspective of the Golden Dawn. Or it's just the opposite end of the color wheel. You don't have to call it a flashing color. But the reason the magic tradition calls it a flashing color is you get a flashing effect if you stare at it. It's very interesting. The colors have to be exact red and exact green hexadecimally. This is digital. But if you stare at this long enough, it gives you like a flashing, weird visual effect. It's almost like 3D is happening. The red really pops out and it starts to glow if you do your if you've got the right visual state for that, and you get into it, you can see it glow very quickly. And that's the interesting thing about the sub elements, is that they almost glow, they flash at you. And you'll see that if we get another sub element, we may see that. But we saw, say, fire and air a little while ago, fire inside of the yellow triangle, and when they're put up against each other like that, it's like a visual effect. It's really interesting, and so that's also useful in meditation as well. And that's where you're combining your elements, and working within like an alchemical way. You're dealing with just the elements, and you're using the meaning of the elements and doing personal work. Okay, so let's go back into it. So I wanted to talk a little bit to kind of bridge the gap into my next guess, so I can sort of remove myself from thinking. It's something that I did when I was testing it, as I would dictate to the audience like some other things so that I could disconnect from the guess, because the fatigue comes in as your mind cycles through these guesses and you start to second guess yourself. So let's do one more guess. I'm going to guess air. There you go. So we got our right guess. We got 1 out of 5. So that's your 20%. So notice how I got to that right answer. Got it right at the very end. And, it was sort of quick. If you rewind the video, you'll see kind of, it was somewhat offhand. I was like, it's air. I didn't cycle through my mind too much. I just had this feeling that it was air. And it was. How interesting is that? Now, that's what I'm talking about in terms of trying to understand like the quality of your right answer. And that's what I think you should focus on in these tests, is trying to understand how these answers can come about. Now, I cheated a little bit. Now, not actually cheated, but I cheated in a way that I have sort of more intimate knowledge of kind of how the statistics works on this, and getting right answers. Another thing to realize is that right answers, they tend to kind of come in waves. So after a series of wrong answers, it's more common to get a right answer. Like in this case, we had 4 wrong answers. So I had a gut instinct. I knew it was weird. I don't know. This is still hard to explain. This is all still kind of new stuff, but I almost knew instinctually that I'm going to get a right answer on the 5th try. I did. Can't tell you how I knew that, but you saw it on video and it happened. But again, if you think about, say, the profession of sales, when you're dealing with your close ratio and you're dealing with numbers, it's really a numbers game. You're dealing with sales. If you were to knock on 10 doors or make 10 phone calls, the numbers do dictate that you're going to get at least 1 sale out of the 10. Just that's kind of how things are. Why or how, maybe it's beyond an explanation, but in a way, because I knew that, we're dealing with 5 answers in this kind of compacted segment, I sort of knew that answer would be right. Strange, right? But anyways, that's what you want to look at, is you want to look at things in waves. So if you're noticing, I didn't even get a right answer in this session, you run another session of 5 guesses. What may end up happening is on that 5th, the last one of the next session, may be a correct answer, or you may just keep getting wrong answers, and finally after a while you'll get it. Now that could be a case of missing PSI, where subconsciously ESP is happening, but it's happening to avoid the correct answers. That's more difficult to detect, and you can read more about it if you want in the web guide, or even do more research on missing PSI, because it is kind of interesting. But that could be a case that is showing you something. So getting wrong answers consistently could be something to look at. So it's not something that, I got lots of wrong answers. Yeah. But that's you could actually take note of that and focus on it. So there you have it. We did a quick session of 5 guesses. We got the right answer in the last one, and in a way, I sort of thought I'm gonna get that last right answer. So there you go. Pretty cool, right? Very interesting. And over time, you do get good at this. You'll get to the point where you can consistently feel right answers coming about. One thing to really take note of is that with the introduction of the sub-elements, it's posing a new statistical structure to work with. It's not just like the 5 sets of 5 symbols, the Zener cards, right? This is giving a different opportunity to do card guessing. So, what you'll be doing is collecting data, in a new way, or in a way that's not, I wouldn't want to be ignorant and say that it hasn't been done. Maybe it has been done in different ways, but this is a way that's, maybe it hasn't had too much traction. We could probably say that it's maybe not as well known. So that's kind of interesting too. So, know that, but at the same time, recognize that you could take the deck and reorder it in any way you like. So you don't have to have the sub-elements in use when doing the card guessing if you don't want to. So you can just do it with the 5 sets of 5 and leave it at that, make it very simple. But the sub-elements could pose an interesting situation with your card guessing where you're, able to feel the waves of the sub-elementals happen, ride the chaos a little bit, seeing how these waves work of intuition. Yeah, it's interesting. So there you go. I'll stop the video and we'll get into the next section. We'll start to do like a basic divination spread with the cards. And then in that, we'll be able to talk about how they would relate to tarot and how you could maybe strategize how to use the cards with tarot or even playing cards. So I'll see you in the next section. All right, here we are in the next section of the video here. I changed the size of the deck so we can use it in the card spread that I'm going to be showing you. And again, this is outlined in the web guide here, so you can just read about the card spread. If you don't want to watch this part of it, you can skip ahead if you want. But I'll just demonstrate how the card spread would work using this deck of cards in what I would say a light divination, because the elements really, they're not that deep in their meaning compared to the tarot system. So it's very simple, but I think it's a nice, easy way to just have a forecast of your personal energy. Because when you think of your psyche, like, the elements are a really good representation of how your psyche is kind of compartmentalized. The fire is a very transformative energy that gives you vitality. Air is like action oriented. It's like you're doing choices, dealing with your mind. Water is emotion. It's very pervasive. It's sort of uncontrollable in a way. And then earth is like your grounding, your resources, your feet in the sand, feeling the pulse of the earth. And then spirit is like a wild card, if you think of it, but it's also the combination of all of the elements together, and it sort of transcends. It's got a very transcendent type of feel, so you can look at it that way. Now, the way that the card spread is going to work is we're dealing with, we'll deal with the meanings of the elements in a basic way, and we'll deal with the passive and active energies. So the active energies are fire and air. They harmonize together, and then water and earth are passive energies. Did I say that correctly? Fire and air are active, water and earth are passive, and so they harmonize. So what we're dealing with is like demarcations in the energies. If fire and earth are near each other, they will kind of create a barrier, and you'll see that in the spread here. But when you take that information, that's how this spread is going to work. You're going to use that to know how the cards are going to lay out. So it's going to be a 9-card spread. It's basically like a 3x3 matrix, so you can have interesting, combinations vertically and horizontally and all that, and diagonally. So it's you can get a lot of information out of that. And I think it's like you don't want too many cards as well too, because it can be overwhelming, especially with tarot. But with the elements, you could expand it if you want, but it could just be too much. 9, I think, is a good sweet spot. And you know what you're dealing with in terms of this divination method is you're just really trying to figure out like what's the element that I should focus on. Or you know, if you want to ask a very specific question, you could be asking like what's, you know, based on that thing that I want to know about, what is the important element that I have to pay attention to. So if maybe if you wanted to ask about like say your work, or like a relationship, you could be asking, okay, well, you know, given that, what element is important to consider in that thing. So if, you know, if it's fire, then okay, so you want to bring like vitality to the situation or focus on ways to vitalize yourself, be transformative maybe. So that's what you'd be doing. So what we, to start off the card spread, we'll get right into it and talk more about it as we go. So the first card that we draw is your center card, and that's the center of your situation. So this is like, it's the most important card because based on whatever you want to know, it's here. You know, so in this case, you know, we don't really have to ask a question. You know, we can just basically, well, we've already drawn the card, so we didn't really ask too much of a question, but this is just a demo. But you know, we could just say like, okay, well, what's the most important element like to work on here? And so for our situation, we've got the sub element. That's water inside of fire. Now again, you don't have to include the sub elements. You can take them out. You can just work with the 5 elements if you want. But in this case, we've got all the elements. I think it's funner to work with them in this case. But we've got water inside of earth. So if we can think about that feeling. It's like water and earth, they harmonize really well. So this is a good sub element. It's got a lot of harmony because water and earth work together. Like, you know, water is on the earth too, right? So if you think of it that way, the earth is the vessel for the water. You know, so you can think of it as like a container. So there's some sort of containment, you know, happening with this feeling. So, you know, what's the most important thing to think about? You know, that's how you would build off of it. So now in this case, because our center element is a sub element, we've got, you know, if we get air and fire, we're going to be creating like barriers. But let's just see how it turns out. Now, how this spread works is that we're going to be drawing cards to surround the center card to give us the 3x3 matrix, right? The 9 cards. So I can put this next card anywhere I want, but I have to account for how it elementally connects, right? So I know here that the earth and water, they harmonize well, but they're not going to harmonize well with air or fire. So wherever I place a card, it's going to create a barrier or connect with it. So, oh wow, that's crazy. So we got another sub element here. But this is good because this is fire within fire. So the element of this it's just fire. So wherever I put this here, you know, we're not going to create like an extension of it. We're going to create a barrier. So you could also think of the game Go, the abstract strategy game, right, where you're linking up your pieces. So this would be a piece that doesn't connect. So it'd be like an enemy piece in a way too, right? So you're not getting that connection. So this will be, wherever I put this, we're going to create like a barrier. So I feel like it'll go there. And so with these 2 cards, now we can start to build a pattern as to where the other cards are going to go based on the cards that we have here. But we're all, you know, we're going to surround the middle card. So we got the element fire. So really the best way to place this card would probably be here or here. So we're getting a direct connection. And that's the way this spread works, is it really works in direct connection. You know, I mentioned the game Go, and that's kind of, you know, some inspiration, you know, in this card spread is these direct connections. So I think this card fits well here. You know, you get to choose. So you get to, a lot of how this works is it's a combination of, you know, rules, chance, and your own intuition. Ooh, interesting. So this is a cool card spread happening because there's lots of sub-elements happening, but they're happening in a unique way. Because if I put it up here, we would have this sort of like cupping feeling, but if I put it here, we've got like a wall. And just the shape alone like that, you can start to think what that could mean. So if it goes here, then we've got this sort of like corner. But if it goes here, we've got a straight wall. like a wall of fire. Kind of interesting. So I think I want to put it here. No, actually I don't. I want to put it up here because I feel like, because this is air and fire, remember this is a sub-element, it's still got a little bit of the air happening. It sort of wants to be upwards. It doesn't feel good when it's down here. So let's put it up here and see what happens and see what other cards we can get. Earth. Okay, so this I think is probably an easy one. You probably already thought, oh, it fits here. And I think it does, because you can use the meaning of the elements to create their positions. Maybe this would feel good up there for whatever reason some other time, but in this case, because we've got our fire up here, we want to put our earth down here, so we've got this nice symmetry, right? Because the water and earth, they connect anyways, and you've got earth energy right here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more spaces to go in constructing our matrix here. Let's see what card we get. Spirit. So, again, talking about spirit, it's kind of like a wild card, right? The way that spirit works in the spread is it'll fit anywhere. So it's active and passive at the same time. That's how it works in the context of the spread. So I feel like it fits right here because, I don't know what these other cards are going to be, but it feels like it can make a good connection because it's not, you can think of it like the grease in the wheels, right? Because it's not a direct hit against something that doesn't harmonize. Its spirit. It's kind of the gel in between it all. So we're getting like we're not getting like a direct rub of these non-harmonizing elements. So I think it fits really good here. And then we're going to have air. To me, that just makes sense. I don't even have to think about it because we've got this like upwards collection of elements here. And that's just kind of working out nicely that way. It may not work that way for you. You may actually feel that maybe it would go here or here, but for me it feels good here because, again, we're thinking about the natural state of these elements and putting them where they feel right. And this spread just feels right. So we're going to put air there. So we've got a nice combination. And in a way, look what we've done, right? We've created this like unique symmetry because these two elements combine and create this element right here. And I think it fits here. The fire. So what we have right now is like the center element is surrounded by fire in a big way. So the harmonization of the passive element, like emotion and grounding and like resources and like the material world, is being surrounded, by like action, energy, and vitality. So it's almost like there's a lot of chaos happening around the center. And here's our last element. So we've got a really interesting way that this connects because we've got, if we're starting from the center, you can see how it evolves outwards to here. Isn't that interesting how that just kind of happens? And these are the types of things that you're going to notice as you work through these card spreads on your own and see different combinations. But it's great because this is the last place that this card could be, and it just so happened to be a sub-element, fire and earth. So it connects nicely up here. So it's great. We've got this spiral effect, quite literally. It's very easy to see, right? It's not difficult to pick out now that we've kind of talked through that. If you saw this for the first time, you're thinking like, oh, look at all these colors, ooh. But we've been putting it together slowly, talking about it. It just makes sense that this spiral has happened to end up with spirit here. So what we could get from this is that our center situation, we're sort of being in the center of it. It's like we're like a vessel holding like our emotions, but we're surrounded by a lot of chaos. But it will slowly begin to unravel as you work through, spill out the water to get into the material world, sort of shed yourself of that emotion, go through a transformative act, and completely burn away your physical state to get into the fire element. It's truly transformative, taking actions, combining And see, look what's happened here, right? We've got the earth and air always next to each other like that. So no, as we go upwards, walking through this pattern, we end up at the sub-element anyways. And then as we get to the next sub-element here. So it's worked out very nicely in these really cool patterns. So even just thinking through how these elements match, you can get a lot of information that way. You don't actually really need to have too much depth on the meaning of these elements if you just play with the information in that way. You can get a lot of traction, which is kind of what we've done here in this card spread. So that's how you would use these cards in a simple 9-card spread. With that, you could use these cards in any other way that you can think of. There's card spreads are a dime a dozen. You can come up with them yourself. It's not difficult. It's just really a system, a placement system. If a card is here, it means this or that. You can create lots of patterns. You can even use tarot card spreads with these cards if you wanted to. See how that works. But this is, a starting type of spread. I like it because it helps you understand the elemental associations and how they relate to each other. It reinforces that. And I think that's a good way to start off with these cards so that you can really get to know them and their purpose. And that's how you do it. And this card spread, this 9-card spread is the same card spread that gets used in the playing card deck as well as the tarot deck. So it's the same card spread used in 3 different types of decks. So you can get familiar with it that way. Okay, so that covers the card spread, and it even led into how this deck gets connected to the other tarot and playing card deck. It's through this 9-card spread. But really, it's sort of going to be up to you to figure out how these decks can be used together. I'll open up another deck here. Open new deck. And I will open up the PathandTarot deck. PathandTarot deck, here we go. Now the interesting thing is that it's very easy to see right away because this is a very colorful deck, how everything sort of starts to connect. That's the cool thing about this, is that you can see the yellows here, right? The air element, the Fool has a lot of air colors in their yellow, violet, sky blue. Same with the 8 of Swords, Imprisonment. It's not the best card to get, but you start to see how these colors play in the elemental association. Now it's up to you to figure out how you want to use the tarot deck with the elemental deck. We'll open up the playing card deck here. Open new deck. And then we'll do the playing card. We'll do the tarot-sized playing cards, because I think they're kind of cool. I'll just replace it. So again, we got some diamonds happening here. So again, these cards are all color coded in a very specific way that connects to these primary elements. So as you work with these 3 decks individually and then together, you very quickly see how easily they relate through just their color schemes. This is pentacles or diamonds, which is earth, so you'll see the immediate relation of like the black diamond here that shows up in these cards. So you can create certain spreads yourself, or just draw a card from each in succession and just see what you have, and then play with it that way. Or create a bigger spread that's in a matrix like I'm doing here, right? I just started adding on to the 9-card spread, and now we've got the 12 cards. You could do that if you wanted to, but I wanted to leave that open-ended because I want to have your intuition work with these colors to know that what can I do with these cards. And that would be the way that I would go about this. Even doing what I'm doing now, just talking with you on camera and just kind of placing these cards almost without thinking about it. You can do something like that and just see what comes up, and you'll start to see that, oh, look at all these interesting patterns that are forming right now. You can start to move things around like I'm doing. Just see what you get. and you can conduct your readings that way based on a matrix. So if if you wanted to say, okay, well, this is going to be my center card, what connections can I go this way, vertically, and that, you can start to work that way too, and that's what I would recommend. But a lot of this should be experimentation. Let your intuition just kind of run free and work with it that way. Basically, that's how I would do it with something like this. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how you would work with the elements in relation to the other decks. There'll be other videos that you can see as I work with these decks individually. But that pretty much does this for the video. I hope you learned something here. Try the intuition test yourself. It may surprise you on how well you can do over time if you train yourself, and then you'll start to be able to see things in the real world and start to predict uncanny things. It's very strange. When you start to really trust your gut, it's unusual things happen. Very, very good, positive things, of course. But there it is. So all the links are there. If you want to get the decks, they're available for purchase on MakePlayingCards.com through the links below. But you can go into the marketplace and just search PathandTarot, and you're going to come up with the sales page. And you've got tarot size playing cards, or just the normal size playing cards. And then the elements are in tarot size, or they're in playing card size. So they're a little bit smaller, so you have some choice in size if you want. I do recommend keeping it tarot size so that you can have a consistent matrix size. But again, I like giving the option, and the smaller playing cards are actually easier to work with in other scenarios, which we're going to get into in the playing card video. So, watch that one. That's a pretty cool one. So the size of the cards do make a difference in some cases. But that pretty much does it here. So thanks for watching this video and sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one.